Welcome to the Licence Subcommittee hearing today on Tuesday the 30th of July 2019 at 10 o'clock. I will start my chairman's announcement first. Hello to everybody here and who's watching live on our Hillingdon Council YouTube. There. Some housekeeping first. Fire alarms. I'm not expecting a fire alarm. If it does go off, leave the way you've come in or to my right, and we meet outside at the Miller's Tap, which is apt for a licensing hearing. Mobile phones, if you could all switch their mobile phones off. Any other tablet or anything, switch that off as well. That'd be great. How this works, you will be seen but not heard. If you toggle on and toggle off on your microphone when it's your turn to speak, and that way you'll be heard. You can only be seen, people on this side of the, or sitting on tables will only be seen, not in the audience. Right, before moving on to the agenda, let me introduce myself. I'm Councillor Roy Chamdale. I'm the chairman of the committee. Assisting me in making the decision are Councillor Simon Arnold and Councillor John Oswell. From Democratic Services, we have Luke Taylor to make sure I follow procedure, and from Legal to make sure all our decisions are legal and just, we have Kerry Monroe. We have other officers here and other people here. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell me who you are, and again, toggle off and toggle off, please.
Good morning, everyone. Mark McDermott, Licensing Officer.
Good morning, sir. My name's Nav Sager. I'm the applicant on behalf of Eastcote Karahi Limited.
I'm a resident. My name is Karen Wested.
Thank you very much. Right, this is a meeting, probably not a public meeting. This is all about your speaking rights. So let's go straight into the agenda. Any apologies for absence?
We've had no apologies.
Any declarations of interest coming for the meeting? No. None? Okay. Any matters that have been notified in advance or urgent?
No.
Okay. Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. You will have received the report bundle and will be familiar with the salient points of the application. This is a hearing to consider an application for a new premises licence submitted by Mr. Naveen Sagar, a director of the Applicant company, Eastcote Karahi Limited, for a proposed restaurant. The application, as amended, is for a licence to sell alcohol for consumption on the premises only between the hours of 12 and midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 12 to 1 o'clock the following morning on Fridays and Saturdays, with late night refreshment between the hours of 2300 and midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 2300 to 1 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. The proposed opening hours are between the hours of 12 and midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 12 and 1 on Friday and Saturday. The premises is a single unit, ground floor restaurant located on a parade of units on a busy road. The premises previously had the benefit of a licence shown at Appendix 8 that was surrendered in November 2018. 3 representations have been received from local residents, and you will have seen my comments at paragraph 7.2 regarding those. I was encouraged by the applicant's efforts to allay the residents' concerns, but as detailed at paragraph 2.1, I recommend the grant of the licence, but with a reduction of the terminal hour on Friday and Saturday to midnight due to the close proximity of residential premises. But this is a decision for the committee, and I would invite the committee to determine the application in whether to grant, refuse or amend the application as applied for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. If you could just once again tell us what the hours the applicant is applying for.
The sale of alcohol for consumption only, no off sales, is between the hours of midday and midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 12 till 1 on Fridays and Saturdays. Late night refreshment is covered within the hours from 2300 hours. Also, the proposed opening hours mirror those hours.
Okay, and you are happy with the conditions which are being proposed and which you have also introduced.
Yes, I entered in some negotiation between the applicant and the objectors to try and come to an agreement. That wasn't forthcoming, but again, as I say, I was encouraged that the applicant was willing to offer conditions that I was hoping would allay the residents' fears.
Councillors, any questions or clarifications on what's been presented so far?
No, not at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Saga.
Yes, as you've heard, this is my application for a premises licence in relation to a ground floor premises situated at 105 Field End Road, Pinner, HO5 1QG. The nature of the business will be a restaurant. You've heard from the licensing officer the proposed opening hours. Can I just say from the outset that I'm fully aware of the residents' concerns, and I've really tried my utmost to try and sort of satisfy their concerns in the best way possible, but balancing that with the objective that I've got to run a business and try to run a successful business. I know the area quite well. I'm conscious there are flats above my premises and on the whole parade of shops, and on the opposite side, just the nature of the high street on the way it is. So in trying to meet the concerns of residents and trying my best not to upset anyone, that clearly was a prime objective for me. I've reduced hours. I've spoken to obviously the licensing officer Mark, and I've agreed to reduce hours. I did apply for a music element as part of my application. When I looked at the concerns of the residents and the sort of distress that they felt that may cause them, I decided to abandon that as well. Although that was an integral part of my application. After listening to the concerns that the residents put forward, I even, to allay any fears, I offered additional conditions. So I appear here today. I know there's not full agreement on a number of matters, but I just want to make you aware from the outset I have tried my best to allay any concerns that the residents have. I know the area very well. I had a business across the road where it was a different sort of business. It was a sale of alcohol, a shop. So I know the area quite well. I know a lot of the residents quite well, and I want to be sort of a friendly business sort of face as opposed to someone that's causing distress to any neighbours. So I have tried my utmost to try and work with any objectors, but it's just unfortunate that we couldn't come to a sort of an agreement, and we end up here today. In relation to you've heard from Mark, the licensing officer. He supports my application to some extent. The only thing I think Mark doesn't support is my opening hours for Friday and Saturday. I say that closing time should be. I've asked for a sale of alcohol and late night refreshment at 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday, and the rest of the days sort of cut off at midnight. And from a licensing point of view, Mark suggests that it should be midnight on Friday and Saturday. I mean, I made numerous concessions, but now here today, I'm prepared to make a further concession. I'm prepared to try and convince you that on Friday and Saturday, I want to abandon the 1 o'clock closing or the 1 o'clock sale of alcohol cut-off point and the late night refreshment, and change that to 12:30. So, in effect, the only difference at the moment, notwithstanding what the objections are, the only difference between myself and from a licensing recommendation is 30 minutes on Friday and Saturday. If I can just sort of give you a brief outline of this particular business. This business was previously an Italian restaurant. I believe it was run for maybe in excess of, I believe, 15 years. I'm sure Mark will correct me if I'm wrong. I noticed that the license was first granted in 2009 to that premises, but the previous restaurateur told me he had been there for in excess of 15 years. But in any event, he's been there for a number of years. This particular property was very, very, very run down, very, very run down, and the facilities there were very poor. There wasn't adequate soundproofing for flats above, and it was in a very bad state. I took the premises over in December, and we're now in July, and I'm still refurbishing. That's the scale of the project. And I've spent a lot of money on this premises, and a lot of it has been spent to make sure that there's no problems when the restaurant opens. I mean, there's soundproofing, so there's no noise goes above. I know one of the residents has an objection, which is nothing related to this application at all, but it's in relation to planning, in relation to the canopy, etc. And just so you're aware, I mean, that cost me in excess of £10,000 just to put silencers in, so there'll be no sound coming from any of the machinery that relates to the canopy. So I've spent a lot of money on this premises to make the area better, to make the premises better, and to do everything possible that would not cause any disruption to any neighbours in the vicinity or any neighbours living above. Because, like I say from the outset, the last thing I want to do is distress any neighbours. In relation to my hours, if I could just take you to similar businesses in the area. If you see on
so what page are you referring to, sir?
So I'm referring to page 6 of the bundle. If you look just down under Yiban, there's a Verendu restaurant, which is 113, which is only a few doors away. I'm based at 105. I believe I understand this was a recent grant of an application, and you will note that the hours here, or closing hours on weekdays, are midnight. So that's also a premises a few doors away with flats above. If you go to the one below that, and you'll see there's a Aroma Lounge, which is 134 Field End Road. That's just across the road from me, with residential flats above. And you'll also note that their closing hours are on weekdays, and I believe Saturday, including Saturdays as well, are midnight. And then just under that, you've got Ascot, which is a pub, which obviously has got late night closing at 1 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. So, my submission to you, sir, is that my hours are consistent with other businesses in the area. In addition to that, the current premises, 105, as I said earlier, was run as an Italian restaurant, and I know in the bundle that the grant of the license was in. If you look at page 49. You'll note that there's a date at the top right corner of the 9th of January 2009. So for the last 10 years or so, it's been running as an Italian restaurant, and the hours granted then were midnight on Friday and Saturday. It's just unfortunate. Yeah, it's just unfortunate that the previous license holder wouldn't transfer the license, and it was surrendered. And because it was surrendered, as opposed to a transfer, I've gone through a fresh application. But the point I want to come across to you, sir, is that despite the objections that this particular premises was running for the last 10 years plus, same premises in question, with a low-level spec, deteriorated premises, and they were the licensing hours for those premises were midnight on Friday and Saturday. So the only difference I submit is an extra 30 minutes on a Friday and Saturday. I mean, I just want to make you aware of that when that particular road has a high turnover of businesses, a very high turnover of businesses. I ran a successful business across the road, and I'm hoping to run a successful business in these premises. And I just ask you to, when you make your decision about whether to grant a license or not, or if you do grant a license in relation to what hours you permit, that you strike a balance between the residents' concerns, which are fully respected, and you look at the other side of a business, someone trying to run a business who's invested a lot of money in the area, in these premises, very high business rates, very high rent, very high expenditure, wages, etc. I know this is not the concern, obviously, of objections, but you've got to be aware of the full totality of the matter. And in order to run a successful business, I do need some sort of leeway. But I have put the residents' concerns in the forefront of my mind, and that's why I've made numerous concessions. So that's the essence of my application. And the essence of my application is I'd ask that you grant me a premises license on the hours I suggest, and I just ask you to bear in mind that I've taken every effort possible to try and allay any affairs. When the licence officer approached me and said these were the concerns, I was, I didn't say I'll come back to you in a week. I mean, within an hour and a half, I was prepared to, chop and change to allay any affairs, to allay any concerns, and that's where I am today. I don't think at the moment there's anything else I can add.
Okay, thank you for that. In Hillingdon, we want to thrive in business, but at what cost? Not at a cost to residents. In terms of everything you've said, the licensing committee, bases its decision only on the 4 licensing objectives, nothing else. How they're going to be met? Will they be met? Your cost and everything else that you spend, that doesn't come into our decision-making process, and we give the weighting that everything that deserves. Okay, right. In terms of what you presented so far, let me some clarifications. I'll start off first. So what you're saying is you're now amending the times, if I'm correct. Tell me if I'm not correct. So Sunday to Thursday, it's midnight, and on Friday and Saturday, it's 30 minutes past midnight, 00:30. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, if you move on to your information packs on page 31, second paragraph down, the prevention of crime and disorder. The second point you've made, premises, I can't read what that says. Could you tell me what that is? If you don't know, you don't know. I mean, it says, I can read the bit, premises to be something from inside and outside. Okay, in other words, if you go to the last paragraph, the prevention of public nuisance, the last bit, all refuge shall be kept, again, I'm not sure what that says. I know the last word is containers.
Yeah, no, waste container.
Right.
Well, I can actually read that, Chairman. The prevention of crime and disorder, I think it says CCTV system should be installed and maintained in effective working order.
The next one. Let's talk about the next one.
Oh, sorry, what, the bottom one?
And the middle one. Premises should be something from inside.
Oh, right, sorry, yeah. And the next one says premises to be well lit from inside and outside. Something like that.
Yeah, thank you.
So in terms of, you made a reference to your experience. So previously you ran an off-license, a licensed premises.
That's correct.
Councillors, any questions, clarifications on what has been presented?
Not for me, Chairman. I think I'm quite happy with what I've heard already. But there is just a couple of things, if I may ask the applicant. You've obviously tried to go out of your way to make it so that you're going to be a good neighbour.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about, because you've got residents that live above you. I know where this is. I lived in Eastcote for a number of years, and I've actually used these premises many years ago, so I know what's above it. Well, all the premises along there have flats above them, so you've obviously tried to go out of your way to be a good neighbour. Can I just ask you what you know about Challenge 25?
Sorry?
Can I ask you what you know about Challenge 25?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Challenge 25 is a scheme where you challenge anyone that attends the premises, and basically you challenge them about their age in relation to prior to the service of alcohol, and the age 25 is like an extra filter to make sure you're not serving to anyone sort of in between that range. So it's a 25 range, but that scheme will be implemented.
Thanks for that. This may seem a bit frivolous, but can you tell me how you would know that someone is 25 plus?
We'd obviously check identification, proof of age by valid documents.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, one of the concerns by residents is prevention of public nuisance. Usually, in licensing applications, they're about when people leave the premises, making noise, being a bit boisterous, smoking outside, that wafting around. How do you intend to mitigate some of those concerns?
I mean, when the premises opens, obviously, I think the way to mitigate this concern is by being live to these issues, that there are live issues, and to maintaining it on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, like if the restaurant and the people start to go outside and start making noise, obviously we'll deal with that. We're obviously restricted to some extent what people do outside the premises to what they do inside the premises, but you know we'll treat all the objectives as live issues, and to try and maintain the fact that it's not a nuisance or any loud noise or neighbours are being disturbed. We'll do our best to make staff aware that there are neighbours above, and you know people are trying to sleep, and people have got kids, and people watching television, and so we'll try and keep the noise to a minimum. I think that's the most appropriate way.
Can I ask how that would work in practice? So you've got a birthday party of 20 people in your restaurant. They all leave at the same time. How in practice do you see that working, so they're not going onto the high street and making lots of noise?
Well, I mean, I can't control. Like, if I'm like using your analogy, if I've got 20 people having a birthday party and they leave the premises and they walk down the road, you know, I can't control what they do when they walk down the road. That's a concession I accept. But as far as my premise is concerned, what happens inside and what happens outside, you know, we'll certainly train our staff. We'll do our best to make sure there isn't a nuisance, and we can advise in a friendly manner our customers that when they leave, be mindful. Just hearing what you've got to say, maybe even put a sign on the door as they leave. Be mindful of people living above or not making noise. I mean, I think the best way is to treat it as a live issue, and I think the way to deal with it is by staff training and by possibly notices, etc. But you know, a lot of the objections are not, you know, that the objectors make. You know, like I said, I respect all objections made. A lot of them are general. They're very general, and they don't even apply to me. I've not even opened the premises. You know, so that they apply to, you know, the whole of the high street. But all I can account for is for my premises and what happened inside, and what happens outside. But I can assure you that there won't be, you know, there won't be people going outside the premises and making noise and and having parties outside. You know, we will deal with that. We will deal with those customers. And if those customers, if there was a situation like that, although we're running a business, we may even consider restricting those customers from entering the premises again. I just want to really make clear to you that I'm fully mindful of objections. I don't want to be running a business that neighbours hate me. I want to work with neighbours in the best way possible. That's why I've made all the concessions.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Ladies first. Karen Westhead. Yes. Thank you. Again, it's just... Yes.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. I live at 103A Field Road, and I've had a lot of experience with another restaurant that's quite close to your heart, because I believe the staff and the management are moving over to your restaurant, and they close at midnight. And yesterday and the day before, there was people outside the restaurant chatting in groups, smoking to well past 1:30 in the morning, with the noise of the kitchens outside the back, going back and forward to the bins, throwing things in, cars with music, as loud as I don't know what. That's what initially brought me to the front door, while they sit waiting for other customers to come in. And I guess we can only surmise that, you know, if you're open till 12:30, then we're going to be, you know, expecting people meandering around outside for a number of time afterwards, and cars picking them up, which is a great disturbance. Some of the places that you refer to are way down the road. A pub, for instance, that is completely separate. I don't know why you need to raise that as being along licensing. That's not next to residents directly affected. And I think, you know, obviously you want to run a business. You haven't consulted with any of us that live above, certainly not me, and I'm directly affected. So you wishing to engage in dialogue to help resolve concerns has never happened, and you have extractor fan and air conditioning fans put directly outside bedroom windows, and they would be going till all hours to accommodate this extended licensing. Most of the block downstairs, the businesses, all the restaurants, they're all finished and done with by midnight. Whether they've got extended licenses, I don't know but it becomes very quiet generally, apart from one restaurant which you're having the staff from. That said, you know, I think to accept that you have to run a business, you know, I think midnight is quite long enough, because we can hear everything just all at the front and at the back. And, you know, I just think it's going to be an absolute nightmare. I don't think half an hour extended time on midnight is really going to make any difference to your business. And that's all I'd like to say about that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just concern about the extractor fans. Yeah. As the applicant has said, that comes under planning.
Yeah.
So that's
a different issue.
In terms of, have you raised any of these issues with your local councillors regards?
I haven't directly raised it with anybody. The only way I've known about these is when I've seen notices on their front door, applications for licensing. I have not known, I've not been consulted, I've not had any discussions with this gentleman in relation to anything. So I'm sort of picking up speed as I've gone along, so I've not had the opportunity to approach any local councillors.
Just going across the representation that you've made, I understand you said it's the noise from the rear of the kitchen. So which premises would this be from?
Lahore, which is 2 doors along. I think a lot of people have already contacted environmental health in the past and have been...
If you could just point out, have you got your information pack there? Have you got?
Yeah.
Page 45. It shows the map.
So they're at 199A, Lahore.
Yeah, because I see where you are, 103.
Yeah. Yes.
So you're saying there's noise from the kitchens there late at night.
Yeah, there's...
After, of course, if you're aware, we only govern anything after 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Anything before then is not a licensable activity. So which premises are you? Are we saying how far away are they that you can hear the noise from the kitchens?
Two doors along.
Okay. Then you've said a bit further down, the alcohol licenses we feel be abused. The license will be abused. Could you just explain what that means?
Yeah, because for instance, I can only go off what I'm seeing already from Lahore restaurant is people are spilling out at 12:30 at night. Despite being closed at 12, they're waiting for them to vacate. They're sitting there finishing their food or their drinks, I'm guessing. I don't go looking, but then they're outside the front by...
I think that would be what we used to call in the old days drinking up time. You've got about half an hour drinking up time.
Yeah, but they kind of set that at about midnight, so you're still seeing them meandering and hanging around smoking, where there's a bin with one of those cigarette squares on the top, and they're all standing around it like it's quite symbolic of something. They're right outside their restaurant, and there was queues of people waiting to go in, so there was groups of families even earlier on at 9 o'clock in the evening waiting to go in the restaurant, standing outside in fairly big groups. Okay, that's under the hours of 11:30, but you know, they were pushed to the limit till half 12 onwards, where people were still spilling out because of them getting into the restaurant late. It's a very busy restaurant, and it is very, very noisy, and I believe the lady above it has been contacting environmental health for some time. And, you know, they've got this extractor fan, well, I think they call it, for the kitchens, and they don't switch it off sometimes till 12:20 at night because it's very, very loud. It's like a jumbo jet engine noise, and it just keeps going. I've asked them to look at that over the years as well. So I think maybe there are some concerns that are alleviated by the fact that they've got a new extractor fan to absorb some of that noise and smells that's going to come out the chimney, out of it. But I'm still going to be bothered by quite a lot of noise at the back because it's even closer, going to the bins, people outside the front. So I think midnight is acceptable.
I get that. Yes, I'm saying that. Also, a bit further down, you said groups, concerned groups, in this case, brackets, male Asians, drinking and hanging around. So, is that... They're taking drinks outside the premises?
Yeah, well, they've been standing outside because they haven't got an alcohol licence at Lahore. So they go across the road, buy lots of alcohol from the off licences. You should know that because you've had an off licence across the road. And they go in and finish their meal and take their drink outside. Bottles, whiskey bottles.
Okay. Councillors, any questions on what's been presented? Only on what's been presented. Because we'll obviously, the discussion led when we get into the discussion case, then we can bounce everything else off. Just on what has been presented. Questions? Yes. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chairman. In your correspondence, you say you've lived in the area for 10 years.
Correct.
So you were there when the previous restaurant was there?
Yeah, and he was always closed by 11. There's a predominantly elderly group of people in the area that used to like that restaurant, the Italian restaurant. So you'd have like small groups of elderly people going in and gone home by 10:30. So
you also say one of the outcomes you're seeking is for them not to be granted an alcohol licence at all? Can you, if it was a
Not
restaurant
to be granted. I don't, no, I'm not so much seeking an alcohol licence not to be granted, but late night, after 12 o'clock at night, to be continued to be opened. I think, there has to be some leniency. They're trying to run a business, I get that. But why 12:30? Why not 12? Why, we just keep moving the goalpost of what time they're going to finish, and that is never set at that, just from my experience.
Thank you, Chairman.
Is that Mr. Paul Faith?
That's it, yeah.
Yes.
Apologise.
It's fine. The floor is yours.
Yeah, apologise for my late arrival. I've lived in my flat there for 19 and a half years at 91A Field End Road, which is in the same block above the restaurants. And in the 19 and a half years I've lived there, I go to many of the restaurants in the area, and we all like using the restaurants. We've got no objection to having restaurants in the area. We've got no objection to having a licence for alcohol in the premises. But I personally don't see any reason why the cut-off time should be 11 p.m. because I can't see why anybody should be, if there's a 30 minutes drinking up after they finish serving, if it was 11 o'clock, they're still not going to be finished till 11:30. By the time they leave the premises, get their taxis, however they're going to get home, get picked up, it's still going to be 12 o'clock by the time the noise is gone. And also with like Lahore, when I come home from work, I'm a London taxi driver, I often come home from work late at night. I see the people coming out there very late at night and their staff even later. So by the time the staff come out and have a little chat outside and wait for their cars to arrive to pick them up and go home, it's usually a lot later than what the times are being suggested here. And they all stand around outside having their cigarettes and waiting for their car to come up, and they're all talking amongst themselves. So even if you're suggesting that he's going to have a licence till 12 o'clock or 12:30, adds another half an hour for drinking up time, add up another half an hour for the restaurant to tidy up and whatever they do after those times. By the time their staff are going to come out, it's going to be a good hour after any licensing times are done. By the time they put the shutters down and wait for their cars and have their little chat before they go, it's going to be a lot later than what's being suggested. And this gentleman here, like he said, he's trying to work with the local tenants who live above. He knows that Karen and myself have put in an application to against this, and he hasn't once contacted us. You would have thought if he was really saying going to be neighbourly, he would have come knocked on our door, or put a little note through the door and said, perhaps can we have a little chat about this? He's made no attempt whatsoever to talk to any of the neighbours from what I can work out. I haven't got young children, but lots of my neighbours have got young children, and I just think it's in a premises like this, it's unacceptable that their licence should be after 11 p.m. Personally, that's what I think. I enjoy a drink. I can go to the Ascot. Other people can go to the Ascot. There's no flats above the Ascot, so the Ascot is an independent pub. Doesn't adjoin any other building, so it's not making any noise or interfering with anybody. So for this gentleman to suggest that the Ascot's got a later licence and he should have a similar one, I think is a nonsense, personally. And that's all I wish to say.
Okay, thank you for that. All applications, they're determined on the merits of their own case. But in your representation, you've also put down protection of children from harm. Could you sort of elaborate on that and what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. There's lots of flats have got children staying there as well. And as far as I'm concerned, if there's a late licence and there's noise coming out, this is going to be detrimental to the sleep of those children. Therefore, I think that's the point I'm trying to make on that item.
Thank you. Councillors, any clarification questions on that? Okay. Right. We now move on to... We've got everybody up there. Discussion stage. This is where we allows, through me, you can ask questions of each other on what has been presented and what is the representation here. So I'll kick it off first. Mark, do we have any members' inquiries, any police reports, online reporting regarding antisocial behaviour, any reports by the EHO that can be presented before the committee?
No, not regard with this particular premises. There may be general antisocial problems in the area, but
so that's a no?
It's a no.
Right. Mr. Saga, 2 questions for yourself. Now, you've heard everything what's been said and obviously the concerns of the residents. So it's a case of I need to know how you're going to manage. Let's start with the kitchen.
Yep.
In terms of back doors, taking stuff out. How are you going to be managing that aspect of your business?
Right. So I've got a very large kitchen at the premises. In terms of management, I've got two rear exit doors. One's a rear exit door at the kitchen that goes into the kitchen and out of the kitchen. Supplies will either be brought in through the front.
Let's. It's between the hours of 11 p.m.
Yeah.
onwards.
Right.
Now, what I need to know.
Yeah.
Is what is your schedule of work? You're using those doors from 11 till the time your staff go home. What are you going to be doing?
So I've already suggested. Anyway, my intention is in the evenings is basically to have that kitchen door closed, at the rear kitchen door closed. That's my suggestion. That's what I intend to do, is to have that kitchen door closed. That's why, for staff, I've installed ventilation, fresh air systems, all sorts of technology in the kitchen. So because of the heat, obviously, the generator.
So those doors are not being used from 11 till after 11 p.m. or what time? What is the cut-off time that you're going to actually be going in and out of those doors?
Well, I want it to be as early as possible. I'm thinking about the 7 o'clock mark, and that's 7 p.m. So I don't.
I've got that.
Yeah.
That's it. So what you're proposing is that there'll be no use of the kitchen doors leading out to the back after 7 p.m.
Yeah. What I'm proposing is that door will be closed at 7 p.m. and I don't anticipate any traffic or any deliveries or anything after that point. So very clearly, that's my proposition.
Right, I get that. Right, in terms of managing smokers from your premises, so it's a sit-down restaurant.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. You've got some. You haven't got amplified music. You've just got some background music being played. Okay. To your exit doors, I haven't seen on the plans. Are there two doors of the exit or just one single door?
There's a single door.
There's not two doors.
There's an exit door at the kitchen and there's a fire
No,
exit.
no, I'm just talking about the front bit now. The front where your customers come in. Are there two doors to come in or just one? There's single doors, but there's one door, and then there's like a sort of a frame, and you go into a second door, and then you come into the premises. So it's two doors. Two doors. Yeah. Okay. So how would you manage smokers from your premises? How would I manage? People who want to go out and smoke, so they're sitting down, having a meal, having a drink. Yeah. After 11 o'clock, they want to come out. How would you manage that? So, what's the seating up to? 90? What's the seating up to? Approximately 90. So, if, say, 60 people want to go out and smoke at the same time, how would you be managing that? So, with respect, it's highly unlikely that 60 would want to go at one time, or a large amount, but... So, how would you manage, let's say 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people? How would you manage that? We'd speak to them. This is what I was saying earlier. We'd speak to them, and staff will be trained to speak to people and be conscious that this is a live issue, that neighbours are not happy with people going outside and smoking. So we'd speak to them, and then if they go, and they'll be told that they have to keep the volume very low, and they've got to be conscious about people above. I'm restricted, sir, because people. I just need to understand how. Like I said, it's the licensing objectives I'm looking at solely. That's all I look at. So I get what you said. I've got what you said. Right, in terms of, I'm just putting up what residents' concerns are, so I and the committee can better understand that, and also other licensing objectives which I need to understand, that you grasp it, and in terms of how you will be managing this situation. Okay, so bear with me, and you councillors, I'm much sorry. I've got a few more points. So, taxis. So, how would you manage sort of people being picked up from your premises after 11 o'clock?
people that want to leave the premises after. People that want to leave
So,
the premises.
mention was made by residents. There's people sitting outside in cars. I've assumed one part of it will be taxis coming to pick up your patrons. How would you direct that in terms of your business? Would they sort of sit outside and could you switch that one off? So would it be they come outside your premises and they bib the horns or whatever, or how would you manage that part of the aspect of your business?
Right. We would aim to deal with the taxi part of things by arranging so diners wanted to leave, and we would offer to arrange like a cab or a taxi for them until the cab or taxi arrived. Yeah, we would be happy to accommodate them inside the premises, inside the premises whilst the vehicle arrived. And we'd obviously give instructions to the taxi company to give us a call or tell the driver to call us once they're outside, and to be conscious that not to start beeping horns, etc. Outside the premises. Otherwise, that would be clearly fundamentally unacceptable for drivers to turn up and start beeping and people to go out. So we tried to manage it in the context that, if the diner wanted to use their own minicab, whatever company they want to use, that's fine. We'd encourage them. We'd be happy to arrange that as part of the service, but they wouldn't go outside. But can I just deal with another point whilst you're asking this particular question? Two particular points which are slightly unrelated. The first one is in relation to this restaurant. It's at number 99. I mean, how they manage their restaurant or what they do, that's down.
I've made it clear. Your application is your application. It's on the merits on what you present. Nobody else's.
And the second point was this: is that just so it's clear. I mean, it's a different point, but I'll be very short. I did ask the licensing officer whether it was appropriate for me to speak to the objectors as well. It was something that I did want to do, but what I didn't want to do was, whilst this application was ongoing, to breach any protocol and do something that I shouldn't be doing. So it may have been protocol for me not to speak to them whilst a live application or they made representations, etc. But I did ask Mark, and he felt it wasn't appropriate at that stage. Is that correct? Okay. I mean, Mark's shaking his head. I mean, if I made an error,
I've got that point. I will. The committee will put the appropriate weighting on that. That's fine. Now, Mark, I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, you've got a customer who you've asked not to smoke outside because he's making a lot of noise and everything else. How would this be recorded?
So you've got a customer outside that's causing a nuisance?
Or any disruptive customer coming in, making a nuisance, shouting, swearing, whatever you like to say. Do you have any procedure in place which would capture this?
Yeah, I mean, procedures in place. First of all, so if anything like that happened, the staff would have to make the management aware of the CCTV at the premises with recording. Also, there'd be a register with any incidents that happen. They'd have to put the time, the date, and the nature of the event in the register.
Could you just tell me a bit more about this register?
So,
in detail.
In detail.
What is this register?
So it's an incident register. So if there was an incident that occurred, it just can't. It's not something like an incident happened and it's forgotten about the next day. It'd have to be recorded. Now, the staff would have to record it.
I get that. Okay, so that's for customers. Say residents phoned up or came down and spoke to yourself or your staff. How would this be recorded?
Well, first of all, I'd want to give all residents my contact details, my direct contact details. Obviously, obviously they have the restaurant details, but I'd like to give them my own personal contact details. So if there was an issue, they could personally address it with me. I think that would be one appropriate way.
I think what I'm looking for, would this incident log be used in a similar way as residents complaining?
100%, absolutely.
Thank you. Councillors?
Yes.
Councillor Oswald?
Thank you, Chairman. You said that you are going to try and deal with smokers if a number of your customers go outside to smoke. that might be a little bit difficult to deal with, so I wish you good luck with that. I can understand what the residents are saying about that. Well, as I said, I think that might be difficult, but anyway, you've said that you're going to try and address that, and I congratulate you for doing that, and as I said, good luck with that. You said that you've got a large kitchen. Now, it's already been said from the residents that there is kitchen noise. You said you've got a large kitchen. Would you be able to store your, say, cardboard and bits and pieces, whatever it is, that go out into bins, waste bins at the back? Would you be able to store those inside until the following day, say in the morning or around lunchtime, when, if there was any noise out the back of your premises, it wouldn't affect the residents, because you would be doing this during the day, they'd probably be at work or wherever they are, school or whatever. Would you be able to store some rubbish, basically, that would go out into the bins in your kitchen until the next day?
Absolutely, that's something I certainly will look into. And also, the other thing I'll say in response is that, obviously, if there is rubbish to go out, we'd try and do that at a sociable hour. So mindful that in the evenings, not to start putting rubbish outside and start making noise. I mean, just dealing with noise, because you addressed the matter of noise. Obviously, that the residents, rightfully pointed out that the restaurant next door's got, it's like a aeroplane engine or whatever it is, and I accept it may be a very loud noise. I've addressed that. The way I've addressed that is the system that I put in. I've spent thousands of pounds putting 2 silencers in, and the silencers are not a legal the 2 silencers are not an actual requirement. But I've done that, so there isn't a large noise, at night. So I've invested money in technology that would hopefully not create a noise and not create a problem.
Thank you, and I think that that's a planning matter anyway, Chairman, isn't it? So that wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't.
Yeah, it's definitely a planning matter. Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Chairman. That was going to be one of my questions, so I'm glad you answered that. The plans on page 34 of the layout of the restaurant. You said earlier that you're looking at about 90 covers. Is there another floor to that? Because I can't see 90 covers on that plan. Page 34. Is there a base? Well, I make out to about 60, but. So there'd be additional tables placed in areas that aren't listed on that plan. Is that correct? Yeah, that's in the covers.
Sorry. So if you look at the drawing, if I can show you, Chairman, that's obviously the seating area at the front, and there is seating here as well. Maybe that's the additional seating, but we don't anticipate to run at 90. Obviously, it's a new business. We don't know how successful it will be, and invariably with new businesses, they take time to generate footfall when people are coming in. So we don't anticipate to be anywhere near 90.
And my other question was going to be, in prevention of public nuisance and noise, what have you, are you planning on offering a delivery service?
There will be a delivery service.
Thank you, Chairman.
So what time is that going to be operated until? Sorry? The delivery.
We don't anticipate to do any deliveries after 11 p.m. But this is obviously I'm not. It's a management decision, but that's the current focus.
Mark, you said you wanted.
Just to be clear, I didn't say it wasn't appropriate. I said it was a matter for the applicant.
Okay, that's fine.
Can I just say in response?
Hold on, we'll come back to it. Any questions on what's been said so far? Yep. You don't have to. I mean, yeah, okay. Right, sorry, Mr. Saga.
I was just going to say to Mark, this is a misunderstanding on my part. I apologise. Maybe I've got it wrong. That was just my recollection. I may have got it wrong, and I apologise if that's the case.
Okay. Any more questions? No? If not, okay. We'll now move on to brief closing remarks from everybody. We work in reverse order, so let's go with Mr. Faith first.
Yeah, just to say about the other the other restaurants in the area, Lahore's been mentioned. We have had to call out the police before, in the early hours of the morning, where the people have come out of the restaurant and they've continued drinking outside in cars outside of the restaurant, and I've had to call the police at 3 a.m. in the morning to get that dealt with. So, and in theory, their licence, I think it was mentioned, it is till 12 o'clock. So the fact that we've had to call out the police at 3 a.m. to deal with disturbances outside that restaurant that just goes to show, isn't it? People are not going to disappear within 5, 10, 15 minutes of whatever the time is it's meant to close. So that's just one instance where we've had to call the police out, but many, many nights there's a big disturbance outside that restaurant, and their licence is say 12 o'clock. This gentleman's suggesting 1 o'clock, so 1 o'clock's going to be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock by the time. If you've got rowdy people coming out of a pub, this gentleman and his staff are not going to be able to deal with a load of people who have been drinking, who have been partying, and if there's 60 or 90 people, whoever there are, in his restaurant, all departing at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning, with the best will in the world, him and his staff are not going to be able to deal with it if they're having fun. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Westhead.
I think with the capacity of the restaurant exceeding what even Lahore has, to 90 covers, I think it is, you're saying, 60 to 90 people, I dread to think what you're going to experience with double the amount of people coming out of that restaurant spilling out onto a very small area where there's only a small inroad bit that you can go into, so it's going to be lots of cars pulling up at all hours. Obviously, I don't want to be negative about a new business starting, and obviously I wish you success, but you know, I think extending the licence till 12:30 is really going to impact us and other residents, and I'd like that to be taken on board.
Thank you. Mark?
No further comments.
So a brief closing remark from yourself, Mr. Sala?
Sir, I take on board all the concerns that I've heard today. I really do, and going forward, I really would like to work with neighbours, all neighbours, and I would prepare to give them all my personal number as well as the contact details of the restaurant to try and work with them. So if there ever was an issue, it could be dealt with. You know, it's extremely unfortunate. It's extremely unfortunate that there's a problem, you know, with another restaurant. And if that's happening, that's clearly wrong. It could be to do with just how busy they are. It could be to do with poor. It certainly looks like could be to do with poor management. That's how it probably would seem. But with the greatest respect, I cannot be responsible for that at all, or in any shape or form. I'm responsible for the way my business will be run, and and I'm the person who takes responsibility for that. But if there's a problem in another restaurant, then that's something that should be taken up with if they're breaching any regulations with the authorities. But I can't be responsible. All I'd say, this is a bit different to sort of like a pub mentality where you last drinks, etc. People are not going to be walking in, and they'll only be served alcohol with a meal. And there's not like a time where they've got to have another 30 minutes and 45 minutes to our closing time is our closing time, and that's when we would want them to leave, or would be encouraging them to leave. It's not like a 30-minute grace or an hour's grace where they can just chill out and finish. With that, that's the time we would want them to go. We'd also be conscious that the Ascot is. I concede as well that I can't recall seeing flats above the Ascot. This concession I make. I can't recall that visually, but we're going to be a good business. So people are coming out of the Ascot even at 10 o'clock and they're drunk and they want to come in and have meals and they're not in a fit state. We're not going to entertain that, because that would disrupt other families in the restaurant. We want it to be a sort of family atmosphere as opposed to sort of a boozy, loud sort of atmosphere. So we'll just be fully conscious about that. I'm grateful to one of the objectors to saying that she now takes no issue with the granting of the license, and she would be happy with a 12 o'clock close. I'm grateful for that, but I would still encourage this committee to grant me 12:30. The extra 30 minutes, just in case I need it on a Friday or a Saturday. I mean, Friday and Saturday are busy days. Just in the event I need it. Hopefully, I won't need the extra half an hour, but just in the event I need it, just a 30 minute on a Friday and Saturday, and the rest of the days, obviously, midnight. And you know, it's a new restaurant. There's concerns about people, traffic. We don't know. I don't know how much traffic will be generated with a new business. So I'll just have to wait and see. But I would sort of strongly, encourage you to grant me a premises license with a closing time of Friday and Saturday at 12:30. And I'd ask you, before making a decision, I'd ask you to attach sufficient weight to all the concessions I've made so far. I've made numerous concessions, and I've offered, thanks to the licensing officer making some suggestions, I've offered a number of, extra conditions to satisfy concerns. And if the council is here for a reason, and the regulations here for a reason. So if it transpires that the business opens and things aren't done properly, then the neighbours can contact me, and they can contact the council. That's how things should be done. But it's just unfortunate that they've had a bad experience with another restaurant, and that's left a sort of sour taste. And I hope to do the opposite. I hope to do the opposite. How I run this business will be completely different to how they run the business. I have been to that premises. I do know them. I do know they've got a very, very tiny kitchen as well.
It's just your premises that we're talking about, okay?
I've got nothing further to add then.
Is that it? Yep.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. No, later on. Okay, right. We're now going to move on to where we deliberate. So we would ask everybody to leave. If you take all your bags, all your devices, phones and everything with you, and then we'll call you back when we've reached a decision. Thank you.